Today's date is August 22nd, 2025, and you are watching the usual analysis of the military operations map. Over the past 24 hours, many updates and events have come in from almost the entire area of hostilities. Key shifts continue to be observed in the Hulipole sector, on the South Donetsk front, on the Pokrovsk axis, as well as in the Siversk direction. In addition, the main events of the day are connected with the Kupansk and Sumy sectors, which we will examine and analyze in detail in this video. Before getting into the core of the report, as always, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Your support in the form of a subscription greatly helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already joined. And now let's begin the review, starting with the Kherson sector. On the Kherson front, over the past 24 hours, more than 7 strikes have been recorded. One of them occurred in the vicinity of Novoberislav and Kazatskoye. In addition, strikes were carried out on the areas of Tokarevka, Ponyatovka, Nikolskoye, Sadovoye, Antonovka, as well as near Belozerka. I want to remind you that only airstrikes are recorded here. Russian Armed Forces aviation is actively operating in this zone, while Ukrainian aviation is not engaged here. The strikes are mainly carried out with FABs against Ukrainian Armed Forces temporary deployment sites. From the Ukrainian side, a statement was made that they managed to repel 6 assaults by Russian forces in the area of Dachi. Ukrainian positions there were attacked, but all attempts were successfully repelled. I remind you that in this sector, assaults are conducted using FPV drones. In addition, similar to the previous day, Russian positions near Hola Pristan on the islands, as well as on the islands near Nova Kakhovka, came under attack. It was there that Russian strongpoints were struck. Overall, the front line in this area remains unchanged today, as it has for the past several months. Along the entire line of contact, FPV drones are actively used. Russian drones strike Ukrainian armed forces positions, while Ukrainian drones strike Russian armed forces positions. Artillery fire is also ongoing. Now let's move to the Orikhiv sector. On the Orikhiv front, no major adjustments on the map have been recorded today. However, there are reports that Ukrainian troops are conducting counterattacks in the area of Bilohirya against Russian positions. They are also striking in the vicinity of Novopokrovka. This is how the Ukrainian forces are operating. Russian units, in turn, are shelling Ukrainian positions near Mala Tokmachka. Furthermore, positional clashes continue in the areas of Stepov, Mali Sherbaki, and Kamenske. Here, Ukrainian FPV drone operators are striking Russian strongpoints in these 3 settlements. Russian forces respond with attacks on Ukrainian positions near Stepnohursk and Primorske. For now, those are the updates on this sector. Let's move on to the Hulipole direction. As is known, over 3.5 years, Russian units have failed to capture Hulipole, despite multiple attempts to advance in this direction. Today, Russian forces are developing their gains slightly to the east, more precisely to the northeast of Hulipole. Most likely, the advance will be aimed toward the supply road. Of course, this will take more than a month, but the conflict itself will also likely drag on longer. Regarding today's shifts, yesterday we mentioned that Russian troops took control of this entire area. Earlier, there had also been reports of advances in this sector. Today, confirming materials appeared, indicating that Russian forces advanced further near Olhivske. Some sources claim that Olhivske is fully under the control of the Russian armed forces. Now attacks are being launched from Olhivske toward Poltavka. Previously, reports suggested Russian forces were moving from Malinivka toward Poltavka, but this information was never confirmed. Possibly, in the coming days, additional evidence will appear confirming the capture of Olhivske, and we may see Russian troops heading toward Poltavka. For today, the main changes are exactly in this area. Let's continue. In the vicinity of Temirivka, Russian forces are expanding their control west of the settlement. According to some reports, Obratne has already come under Russian control. Yesterday we discussed attacks on Obratne. Now reports are coming in that Russian troops are advancing toward Berezova. This is the vector of their movement. They are also attacking settlements on the way to Berezov, 2 villages, Ternov and Zaporizhzhia. As for Novohrayhorivka, it has indeed come under the control of the Russian armed forces, and now attacks are directed at Kamishevaka. According to pro-Russian sources, fighting has broken out for Kamyshevaka, and Russian troops managed to secure positions on the outskirts of the settlement. It is not yet clear which outskirts, the northern or southern, from the side of Orikhiv. But in the coming days, we may learn the results of Russian advances here. In addition, Russian troops are expanding their control west of Hulipole. Hulipole is located here. According to some reports, Russian forces are already conducting clearing operations in the pocket south of Shevchenko. Shevchenko is here, and now clearing operations are ongoing in this pocket. Let's continue along the map to the settlement of Malivka. Here, Russian troops are expanding their zone of control in the direction of Seshneva. Yesterday, a video appeared from this area. It showed Russian forward positions, and the entire territory came under their control. This is the area of combat operations. Today, Russian forces expanded their zone of control even further. This sector also came under Russian control, and video material has been released from this point. Here, the advance reached up to 1 kilometer in favor of the Russian armed forces. It is reported that Russian troops are pressing from the direction of Oleksandrograd and Malivka towards Sekhneva. It is not yet clear whether the Russians have secured positions in this settlement or not, but in the coming days we will find out and discuss it. Let's continue along the map to the settlements of Andriivka-Klevtsovo. Here, information appeared that Andriivka-Klevtsovo is fully under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces and is no longer controlled by Russian forces. In addition, Russian troops were pushed back in the area of Tolstoy. From this point, a video from Ukrainian soldiers appeared. Here, Ukrainian soldiers raised the Ukrainian flag. Thus, we can conclude that Tolstoy is now under the control of Ukrainian forces. This poses a serious threat to the Russian armed forces, grouping in the area of Zeleny High and Novokatske. The point is that the Mokry Yali River flows here. Thus, Ukrainian forces are cutting off the Russian grouping in the area of Zeleny High and Novokatske from supplies and may block it by depriving it of logistics. How events will develop, we will see soon. For now, the territory marked in yellow has fully passed under the control of Ukrainian forces and has been cleared. As for the Russian advance in the area of Filia, here, according to Ukrainian sources, yesterday there was information from pro-Russian outlets. Today, pro-Ukrainian sources are reporting that Russian troops have indeed crossed the Volchya River and are already attacking Ukrainian positions near Filia. In the coming days, we will see Russian advances here. From the settlement of Moravka, no updates have been reported today. Heavy fighting continues here. I remind you that yesterday, Russian troops expanded their control in the area of Kotlyarivka and are moving toward the supply road to Moravka. In the coming days, we may also see significant advances by the Russian armed forces here, unless Ukrainian forces counterattack and stabilize the line of contact. Let's move to the Pokrovsk direction. On the Pokrovsk front, there are notable changes today, more precisely in the past 24 hours. Let's start with Myrnohrad. In the Myrnohrad area, multiple FAB strikes have been recorded. These points were hit with FABs over the past day. I remind you, we spoke of some of them yesterday. Let's look at one video. Here, 2 strikes were recorded on a Ukrainian temporary deployment site, as well as on a UAV command post. It was stated that FAB 3000s were used. You could see it in the footage yourself. Thus, FABs are being used here against Ukrainian temporary deployment sites, as well as against UAV command centers. Possibly in the coming days, assault operations on Myrnohrad will begin. As for the bypass of Toretsk, earlier there were reports that Russian troops had taken Rodinsky under control and were even advancing in this area, striking Ukrainian positions deep in the rear. However, Rodinsky remains mostly under Ukrainian control. Russian forces are currently not advancing in this sector. All efforts are concentrated on bypassing the settlement of Shakov. As is known, yesterday we mentioned that Russian forces are advancing in this area and moving towards Sofiivka. A FAB strike also hit a temporary deployment site there. FAB 3000s have been repeatedly used here. Today, Russian troops are also moving toward the settlement of Vladimirovka. According to some reports, they have already secured the southern outskirts and begun storming the settlement. In addition, Russian troops are advancing east of Kucheryev Yar. reports indicate Russian troops are moving in this direction and already attacking Ukrainian positions near Toretsk. For now, part of this information comes as preliminary reports, and in the coming days we may see video materials and confirmations of an expanding zone of control for one of the sides. As for Pokrovsk, yesterday we mentioned that Russian forces secured this settlement. Now reports state that Russian troops are attacking in the direction of Orikhiv. It was previously mentioned that Ukrainian troops had cut off a group of assault units from supplies, but it turned out that there were far more Russian assault units present in this area. Now the attacks are being carried out against the settlements of Rubezhnoye, Stepi and Volnoye. All indications suggest that Russian forces are expanding their presence in this direction and increasing their zone of control from the flanks. If Russian troops indeed advance on this section, Pokrovsk will effectively be cut off from supplies and may end up encircled. We continue monitoring this sector and move on. In the area of Alexandro Shultino, updates have been observed. Today, video footage has emerged from this very location. Forward strong points of Russian troops were located here. The shift amounted to up to 1 kilometer in favor of Russian units. At present, the entire area has come under their control. I would like to remind you that yesterday we discussed how exactly this segment of the combat zone had come under Russian control. Previously, information had already been released by the Russian Ministry of Defense, claiming that Alexandro Shultino was fully captured by the Russian armed forces, but that information turned out to be premature. Currently, the western part of this settlement still remains under Ukrainian control, despite the fact that Russian forces are actively storming it. It is possible that by the time this video is released, the control zone here will be much wider, but adjustments are only made after receiving reliable confirming data. So far, these are the shifts at this location. In addition, there are updates in this part of the combat zone. Here, Russian forces crossed the Siversk-Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and their forward positions were located at this location. The advance has reached up to 3.5 kilometers, and the entire territory marked in red has come under Russian control. Everything indicates that after capturing Alexandro Shultino, Russian troops will move on to straighten the front line in the area of Stupochki and the surroundings of Alexandro Shultino. This entire salient will gradually fall under Russian control, and then possibly assault operations against the town of Konstantinovka will begin. As for Konstantinovka itself, aerial munitions are being delivered against temporary troop deployments and UAV command centers. A FAB strike was recorded in the area of Novodmitrovka. Another FAB strike occurred directly in Konstantinovka, and an airdropped munition also struck the vicinity of the settlement of Berestokh. Otherwise, the front line looks the same here. Let's move on to the Siversk direction. On the Siversk front, Russian forces are building on their recent success and are clearing out a salient mainly between Serebryanka and Novoselka. This is how the line of contact is being straightened. Today, confirming information has arrived from this very sector of the combat zone. This stretch has come under Russian control. In addition, yesterday we mentioned that this entire area had come under Russian control, and possibly by the time the video was recorded, the Russian-controlled zone here is significantly wider. But as always, adjustments are only made once verified information is received. Yesterday, it was also discussed that between Vyemka and Ivano-Daryevka, Russian troops were straightening the front line, and now reports are coming in that Russian forces are aligning the front between Vyemka and Novoselka. Thus, in the coming days, the situation along the contact line in this area may change. Now let's move on to the Serebryansky forest. Let's zoom the map out a bit. This is how the Serebryansky forest looks. This entire stretch is the Serebryansky forest, for those who are not aware. Yesterday we said that Russian troops were clearing out the salient between Serebryanka and the forest itself. Yesterday, this very sector of the combat zone fell under Russian control. There were also reports that Russian troops had taken a significant part of the Serebryansky forest under their control. Today, confirming materials have arrived from this location. Over the past 24 hours, this entire territory has come under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Pro-Ukrainian sources are also reporting that there are blocked Ukrainian soldiers on the southwestern edge of the Serebryansky forest. All indications are that Ukrainian troops are trapped in this sector of the combat zone and cannot get out. At present, Russian forces are conducting clearing operations across this entire stretch, and possibly in the coming days, we will see the entire Luhansk region cleared. I want to remind you that there is a small section of the Luhansk region that had remained under Ukrainian control, and now active clearing operations are underway. There is also another small portion of Luhansk region along this combat zone that is not under Russian army control yet. Now let's turn to the Krasnyi Lyman direction. No significant updates have been registered here today. In the area of Torskoye, Russian troops are advancing toward the settlement of Zarekhnoye. Yesterday we mentioned that Russian forward positions were located in this area. News is coming in that Russian troops are pushing forward around Zarekhnoye and expanding their control zone. Possibly in the coming days, we will see the zone of control expand both to the north and maybe also to the south. Everything suggests that Russian forces are moving toward the supply road to Zarekhnoye. The supply road passes right here, and it is possible that the Russian armed forces already have this road under fire control from the west. It is also possible that the northern supply road is now under fire control as well. If that is the case, Ukrainian troops will find themselves blocked in Zarekhnoye unless they attempt to counterattack and stabilize the line of contact. Once Zarekhnoye is taken, the road to Lyman opens up for Russian troops. If Russian forces reach Lyman, they will be able to cut off the entire Ukrainian grouping in Siversk from supplies, since the supply road runs in this direction toward Siversk. The southern supply road has already been completely cut off and is under both physical and fire control. We continue monitoring the situation in this sector of the combat zone and move on. In the areas of Novosilovka and Drobyshevo, FAB strikes have been recorded against Ukrainian positions. All signs point to possible assault operations against these settlements in the coming days. In the Shandrigolovo area, pro-Russian sources are reporting that Russian troops are expanding their zone of control. The Ukrainian side does not acknowledge Russian advances, and the situation here is quite contested, since all the information is arriving in the form of news updates, and each side embellishes its own successes. So for now, no corrections are made here, but reports continue to come in about Russian advances. In addition, positional clashes are ongoing in the areas of Karpovka, Redkodub, Grekovka, Novi Mir and Olgovka. Now let's move on to the Kupansk direction. Here, the situation has become clearer. Yesterday we mentioned that there was a Ukrainian tank attack against Russian positions located in these buildings. Today it is being reported that Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups, DRGs, have indeed been spotted here. And these Russian DRGs are operating not only on this stretch of the combat zone, but also further north, in the northern part of Kupansk, somewhere around this very area inside Kupansk itself. As of today, no significant shifts have been registered here. Positional clashes are also ongoing along the entire line of contact. Ukrainian positions were attacked in the vicinity of the settlement of Moskovka, as well as near the settlement of Petropavlovka. These are the updates for today. Let's move further along the map to the Velikoburluk direction. Here, attacks continue on Ukrainian positions near the settlements of Katnoye and Ambarnoye. Ukrainian forces are still attacking Russian positions near the settlement of Melivo and in the forested areas west of Melivo. In these forests, Russian strongpoints have come under attack. Now let's move to Volchansk. Heavy fighting continues here without any adjustments along the line of contact. In addition, some reports suggest that Russian forces have expanded their control west of Volchansk, in the forested areas located in this part of the combat zone. It is possible that Russian troops have straightened the front line somewhat here. I want to remind you that earlier Russian troops crossed the Seversky Donets River and entered these forested areas, establishing positions there. Now there may be an expansion of the control zone, but no confirming evidence has been provided yet. The same applies to the Liptsi direction. Ukrainian positions were attacked near the settlement of Liptsi. In turn, Ukrainian forces attacked Russian positions near the settlements of Gluboko and Lukyantsy. No changes to the line of contact here. As for the Sumy direction, no changes to the map have been recorded here today. But pro-Ukrainian sources report that Ukrainian forces are in a critical situation because their main combat units, the more trained soldiers, have been redeployed to the South Donetsk direction. Currently, reserves are being pulled away from this front to South Donetsk to stabilize the line. Meanwhile, Russian forces have brought a large number of FPV drone operators to this direction and are now striking Ukrainian positions up to 15 kilometers deep along the entire line of contact. Effectively, Ukrainian troops here cannot even approach Andreevka, Kondratovka, or Unikovka. It is possible that in the coming days, or maybe in the coming weeks, the situation along the line of contact will change here in favor of Russian forces, since the main combat-capable units have been removed from this direction and sent to the South Donetsk front. As for Tetkino, Russian positions inside the settlement are being attacked with FPV drones. Russian forces, in turn, are also attacking this cluster of settlements with FPV drones. Otherwise, these are the updates for today. Thank you all for your attention. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.